Hey, Rise Up Nation, welcome back for another edition. Hey, Vince. Hey, Lisa, for another edition of Rise Up in Real Estate. And I'm excited to be here. I still can't get the lighting right in my studio, which is not a studio. I still got shadows. I can see the light. It's driving me crazy.
Great. You look great.
We are here. We are all here, and we're glad to be here back with the saddle. Vince, listen, we got to get some better music on the countdown.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any control of that, but I about fell asleep.
So the little 30-second countdown we do, I just found out we could actually make a video to play during that time. So we got work to do.
We could do like a intro of the guest. Like we could have
you
could have sent us some like B-roll of how he lives, and that would have been cool.
Man. Constant improvement. We're coachable. We are coachable.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but we are here. Hey, welcome. I'm glad everybody's here. I'm sure we'll be having people hop on. Lisa, I'm going to give the ground rules real quick, and then we'll jump in to get to know you a little bit. Glad that you're here. From the great state of Georgia. I've got some family connections we'll talk about in a minute. But here's how this goes. So about 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes, we'll talk, get to know you, find out what's extraordinary about you, which I'm sure we'll figure that out pretty quick. I already know. And then after this episode is over, this will be edited and played as our podcast that airs next week. Like today, by the way, Vince, I don't know if you saw, we are replaying an episode today, right now, on Spotify that Shayla did for us.
Shayla Dean.
From Missouri. So we have a podcast that plays every week, and we're right in the middle of season 6, and season 6 is all about finding people that are really good at something, and let's talk about it. So Lisa she called herself the extroverted extrovert.
Yes.
Which, if anybody knows me, I could probably describe myself that way. I went to a barbecue festival this weekend where we cooked and then stood in the booth. When I got home, I was so tired. We stayed up all night. And then the next day, there were, I don't know how many thousands of people came by to try our barbecue. But at the end of the day, I told Mandy, goes, how did it go? And I'm like, I'm exhausted. She goes, come on, you were in your element. Like I talked to so many people. I loved it. So Vince, Lisa has a military connection. Vince was in the Air Force. Lisa, you probably knew that.
Yes.
But you guys served. Lisa is from a military family. Lisa, tell me a little bit about your background, and then I want to get into what you do and who you are as we go forward.
Okay. So yes, I grew up in an Army family. Both my mom and my dad served for 20 plus years in the Army. And then I grew up and married a Navy man. So
there you go.
Definitely lived the military life and love it.
How'd your parents feel about that?
Oh, I mean, they didn't care. More than anything, I think the question was like, why didn't I join the service? But I had a baby really young. And so that was really kind of like the defining factor for me. And just the fact that I kind of had a problem with authority.
Yeah. People also don't understand, like, to be a spouse or a child of like a dual military family, like you're serving, like you're moving, you are at events, you're doing all the things too, you know? So.
Yeah. And I liked it. I mean, it's just all I knew, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were born where, Lisa? I always like to ask military families this.
Yes. So born in upstate New York. So I always say New York. And then I was telling Ted before, people instantly think boroughs, right? But I was born in Binghamton, which is about an hour south of Syracuse and really close to like the Pennsylvania border, and didn't stay there too long. My parents really loved Leavenworth, Kansas. For some reason. So we did multiple duty stations there, and we were stationed other places. So like my parents were stationed in Alaska. We were stationed in Germany for a couple of years, but we always came back. My parents had bought a house in Kansas. And so I intermittently grew up in the same house.
Interesting. And you, Vince, I forgot to ask you about your incredibly productive weekend. I should have started with that. I'm sorry about that. And then
that's okay.
You told me you got a lot done this weekend. I meant to highlight that today because in this business we don't get a lot done at our houses normally. And so I was proud of you.
Thank you,
Lisa. So you just told me you have a couple of children.
Mm-hmm, I do. So I've got a 29-year-old daughter, and I had her really young. That's part of just my story, my testimony. And I've got a 21-year-old son. So the baby is about to fly the coop. He's graduating from college in about a month and a half, and I will be a true empty nester. My husband and I, So he commutes. We live about 45 minutes from the college. And so he just drives down there. He's an introverted introvert like his dad. I'm enough for the both of us. So
me too.
Down to school.
I love that. Is your husband still active duty, or is he retired, or?
No. So he separated from the service in 2006, and he does information security now. So he's been doing that, I don't know, about 13, 14 years now.
Remind me where you guys are, Lisa.
So we live just outside of Atlanta. We moved 3 years ago, about an hour north. So our closest brokerage is about 52 minutes from my house. And then the other brokerages are about an hour and 15, hour and a half from where I am. But we really kind of wanted that sanctuary. We were living like in the suburbs of Atlanta, and dirt is very expensive. And, we really wanted to put a house on top of that dirt, and we had to keep driving until we could afford what we wanted.
That's great. And tell me, Lisa, I know that you work. I didn't ask you this before, but I don't know exactly. So I want you to tell me what do you do for Megan and Kristen, our good friends you're with RE/MAX around Atlanta, right?
I am. Yes.
What is your daily job there? I mean, we love them and what they've done for a lot of years, but tell us what you're doing there for them now.
So I am the director of growth and development. If you ask me what my subheading would be, it would be like chief encourager, like chief encouragement officer. I really love to just pour into our agents and, kind of see what's going on with them. Where are the gaps in their business? I mean, retention is important. So I do recruit as well. And then when we bring on agents, Connie is the qualifying broker, Connie Spaziano. And so her and I kind of tag team, and we get agents up and running, especially if they're new licensees. And I absolutely love that. I love helping agents either build their business or enhance their business. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And RE/MAX has so many tools that I think it's very easy to become overwhelmed. And so just kind of saying, all right, well, how about this one thing? Are you doing this one thing? And they're like, no, I didn't even know about that one thing. So just being able to encourage them with that.
I got to ask Ted, Lisa, biggest recruiting challenge?
I'd say getting out of my own way is probably the biggest recruiting challenge, because I can very easily have a conversation with people. And I love, if I'm standing in the grocery line, I've met a new best friend, right? If I'm on the MARTA train, I've met a new best friend. I don't love the phone though. I'm just going to be very honest. And that's the hard part for me, is like getting out of my own way.
It's what Vince does. Well, I mean, his title is Director of Opportunity, so he does a lot of recruiting, but does a lot of other stuff. So I'm sure that's why he's interested in that piece of it.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, really, it's easy for people. We get together in a room with other, we get together in our Southeast region, and the fees always come up. People want to talk about the fees. But at the end of the day, with recruiting, it really is relation, and you have to not be able to take it personal. And in the beginning, because I'm a very relational individual, I did take it pretty personally. You'd have a great conversation with an agent that comes into the office, and you're like, man, I want them. And they've decided that they're going to go start their career somewhere else. And then I remind myself that, I didn't start at RE/MAX. Like, I started at another brokerage, and fortunately found my way here, and my business flourished, and it, is thriving. And so, it's unfortunate to say, and I'm certainly not going to, poo-poo on other brokerages, but we all have to start somewhere. And sometimes you go someplace and they overpromise and underdeliver. And if they're not being well served, then I know that, we make sure that they know the door's open, that they can always come back.
Yeah, so that's an important note there for folks listening that are in sales fully, not necessarily recruiting, is it's still maintaining a relationship after someone does not choose you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's huge. We so often forget that. And Tad and I have a lot of examples of what we call boomerang agents who've actually left and come back because they realize the grass isn't necessarily greener. Some people like to say, the grass is green where I water it. And I can buy into that. But sometimes there's just a bigger, better yard also to water the grass in. So trying to get that across is tricky. But Tad, I know you probably have a topic agenda, so I won't go down the recruiting train. But no, definitely, it's the phones are tricky, right? So I have some rituals I do before I get on the phones, and I like to say things to myself, like, if they're nasty, it's a them problem, not a me problem.
That's a good one.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So little things you can talk yourself into, telling yourself to stay into curiosity, right? Just to try to find out what they need to really help that person, and go from there. But that's a different session. But I love it. I love that you.
I mean, this session
for recruiting.
No, I purposefully didn't. Like, I don't like to have a script. I think we'll get to the root of it better without it, for my style anyway. And the thing that pops in my head when you talk about that, if recruiting is relationships, if it's relationship based, then I mean, how many relationships do you have that when they tell you no, that you just cut the relationship off? That's not a relationship. That's a transaction. That's a transaction. Right. So in my opinion, if you really go in, and I think this is what Vince is really good at, and I can tell Lisa's good at it, if you go into that appointment with the idea that I'm now going to become part of your network, I'm going to become part of your advocate. I'm going to be an advocate for you. I'm going to be a cheerleader for you. We're going to make you better here or otherwhere. Right. Right. I just think that long-term play is better.
That's all people want. That's all people want.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, Lisa, we have the advantage because we care. You say you're not poo-pooing on other brokerages, but ask yourself, do they care like we care? And the answer might be yes. You know, you can't just make a sweeping generalization that not all brokers don't have support, because we do, right? There's a lot of really great brokerages out there that aren't us, and we can learn from that, right? So yeah, it's more of an art than a science, for sure. The science part is number of attempts you make, right? But what happens after that becomes art very quickly. In these conversations and what we call the recruiting room. And then a cool thing that frees you up from a little pressure is that we believe that we're not right for everyone and everyone's not right for us.
For sure.
We save, I don't know. I can't even, sometimes I feel like I'm hired to just filter out who not to hire and save the company thousands of hours in the future by not bringing on. I mean, we have agents that call us that want to join just because they know who we are. And that doesn't always happen. So that's a whole nother mentality. You have to decide, do we take everyone or not? Right. Right. Not. Are we looking for someone who's commission focused or someone who's mastery focused and learning based? There's a difference, right? Because the dollars and cents, these 10% reasons people leave are irrelevant if they're selling, proportionately less property because they don't have the support, right? So 100% of nothing is nothing. You know what I mean? I can take a 50-50 agent and net them the same amount of cash as a 100% agent in the right environment every time. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think people sometimes don't see those opportunities. They can only, especially you get an agent that's been in the business for 18 months or greater, right? So I remember there are certain little nuggets of wisdom you hear in life and they just stick with you. And one of those nuggets was my pre-license instructor. She was like 4'11". She was a juvenile probation officer before coming into real estate in New Jersey, before coming down to Atlanta. And she was just a little spitfire of a thing. And she said, look around the room because within 18 months, 80% of your classmates will not be here because that's the dropout rate in real estate. And, the truth is when you're in the trenches, and if real estate truly is that thing that you've taken a leap of faith on, and you said, this is what I'm going to do, and you've got expenses, like that's the one thing that, selling Sunset or whatever it is, $1 million listing that they don't tell you. Like you think you're driving around in a fancy car and having coffee. And yes, we get to hopefully do some of those great things sometimes. But the truth is like you're in the trenches every day. And if you don't understand that there's a cost of doing business, when you hang your license somewhere, there are things that the brokers are taking on. They're taking a risk by taking you on. And the hope is that they have systems in place that are going to get you up and running and hit the ground running as quickly as possible so that the rate of return is great for the both of you, right? But oftentimes people don't understand that. And what happens is they get scared, right? They get nervous because they've got a bill coming due. They're going to make mistakes. And then they want to go for the lesser thing. And I know the value that we have here. We have 4 offices. We have just shy of 130 agents, but we have 5 full-time brokers. So I know that you can go somewhere else and maybe that office has fun culture. They're always doing, great things. but they've got one broker and there's 150 agents. So when you've got 20 agents who at any given time have their hair on fire, you know what I mean? Like how well are you being served? And so I know what we offer here. And I guess another answer to your question is, what's the biggest challenge is not fire hosing somebody with what I think is all the goodness that we have to offer here, right? Because I know what we have. And just kind of an interesting story. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this, and hopefully I know Megan and Kristen won't mind, but when I came to interview at RE/MAX, I knew that I was leaving my previous brokerage. I felt like the Lord had finally released me, and I was a little bit just kind of weary and beat up by the business. I had been going for about 6 years, and I just really had not seen the fruit that I had hoped for. And when I came, I interviewed well, first of all, let me back up and say I went on and I went to Google and decided, tell me the best nationwide brokerage. My husband and I were contemplating a move to Fort Worth, Texas. And I knew that if I was going to be rebranding, I needed to be with a brand that I could take with me. And it wouldn't be that hard to, get new signs and stuff wherever we went. And so our potential move was about a year out. And what came up was RE/MAX. It was the number one slot. And I just had never in my 6 years of real estate had ever considered RE/MAX. And so I looked up 2 different brokerages very close to where I was living at the time. And I went and I interviewed at both of them. And I went to the brokerage that I did not join, which they were lovely. They were great, just had a very different feel, very different atmosphere. We're all RE/MAX, but we all have our own flavor, right? Sure. And so when I came and interviewed, at RE/MAX around Atlanta, I told them, like, I want to be here. Like, this feels like family. And, I have a very wild and vivid imagination, and I love the movie My Best Friend's Wedding with Julia Roberts. And in that, there's a scene in there where her and Cameron Diaz are talking, and Cameron Diaz is crying because she wants to get married, and she had kind of or Julia Roberts is trying to break them up, and she's explaining to her, like, he doesn't want creme brulee. She's like, you're creme brulee. And she, Cameron Diaz, she's like, what does he want? And she says, he wants Jell-O. And, so Cameron Diaz is like, well, I can be Jell-O. And Julia Roberts says, you can never be Jell-O, Yeah. And so I told them that is how I feel, that there were 2 different RE/MAXes, and they're both great in their own right. But one was creme brulee, and I'm just a Jell-O kind of girl, like they're Jell-O. And that's kind of our little inside joke that, when we're kind of doing the little thing, like, you're my Jell-O, because it's like home here. It is really like family. Awesome. And you just have to know where you want to fit in. And like you said, Vince, not everybody is for us. We're not for everybody. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. So Lisa, you sold real estate for a little while, right?
Yes. And I do still have the freedom and the flexibility of selling. I'm not a competing broker, so I'm not out there actively building a business, but I do still serve past clients.
Awesome. And you are now, how long have you been in the role you're in now?
I have been about 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, Tracy. Tracy is, if you have a question about RE/MAX tools, Tracy has the answer. She's
strategy of how to use those tools.
Okay.
Unbelievable. So that's a good one for you to know, Lisa.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Lisa, real quick, in regard to the fire hosing, that's where that mantra, stay into curiosity, helps me out, because I just want to, Tad actually calls this feature dumping.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, look at this tool. Look at this. We can do this. We can do all that. It's feature dumping. Yeah. That's 90% of what they've already heard. Because I'll tell you right now, every brokerage has and I like to translate these conversations to the listeners that are selling, right? So same thing if you're going into a listing presentation, right? Everyone's got the best technology, the best tools, the best whatever. But when you stop and you ask that seller or that agent about themselves, you don't start learning anything that matters until then. All right. So stay into curiosity. When they say this, then ask another question, and then just ask another question. Our job, it's kind of like a consulting coach that does their job well. All they really do is let you self-discover over a conversation, right? Same thing in a listing presentation. You're just self-discovering the seller's true needs. It's nice to show that you have 13.5 million, website hits a year. That's great. Okay. But let me know about the fact that you're you just had a son who got sick and you need to move to a hospital closer in Dallas. Like that's the stuff I need to know, right? So unless we stay into curiosity and don't jump to that feature dumping, we're never going to get that information. The second thing I took from what you said was when you say you don't love the phones. Well, I act like I love the phones, but I don't love the phones, right? I just have to fall in love with that mundane task. So what I do is I say, you said it yourself. You said, I know what we have to offer. I know what this brokerage can do, which can change your life, right? When used properly. So I like to think that it's an injustice not to call. Yes. I am doing these agents a wrongdoing by not calling. I'm working on this with my wife now. She runs her own business. She's like, I don't want to call and prospect. I'm like, does your product change lives for the better? She's like, well, of course it does. Then it's wrong not to put that out there.
Right.
So a couple of those
doing them a disservice.
Mine. Yeah, exactly. Can make it a little easier, but I get you. Some Mondays I wake up and it's like, I don't want to dial anybody, you know? And that's where we start talking about Tad. I'll stop, but that's when we get into discipline, motivation, and consistency, which are huge.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well,
Lisa,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lisa. Go.
Well, one thing I was going to share that really kind of made the difference in talking about what you were talking about, Vince, is that, you know, Megan and Kristen and Connie, like they have they know how to get in and ask the questions, right? And then hold your feet to the fire when you give a response. And what I mean by that is we offer here what we call a WhyMax session. So what is your why? Like, why are you in real estate? And I think oftentimes the initial question goes out when you're meeting with an agent and it's like, well, I love helping people and I love looking at houses. And like, that's the initial response, right? Okay, but now you have a license. Now what? Right? So what's going to motivate you to get out of bed when your clients are cussing you out, your deal's falling apart? Like, what is the motivation to keep everything intact and keep going? Right? And so in these WhyMax sessions, they kind of do an autopsy of your business. And when I came to RE/MAX, I came in August of 2019. And then, you know, in March of 2020, basically the world shut down. But in early 2020, I want to say it was January of 2020, I did one of these WhyMax sessions. And the result of that
is a vision.
I made like a little mini vision board, right? Of what was my why from the result of that meeting, because no one, you know, I got up every day and saw my parents put on a uniform. So that's what work was to me. I didn't have anybody like an uncle or a cousin or a friend, or my parents, I'm sure, had friends that were entrepreneurs. But I didn't see that. And I wasn't that kid that would go down to like the corner store and buy a bunch of now and laters and then sell them for 5 cents each. You know, that just wasn't who I was. That wasn't my hustle. And so I can have the good relationship. You know, I had straight A's, but on my report card, my teacher was like, Lisa talks too much. And so she would move me around the room. And I'm like, thanks. I just got a new best friend because you just moved me to another side of the room. Right.
Lisa, so, we're the only two people that can pull off 23 minutes of this podcast, and Tad hasn't gotten a word in yet.
Oh.
So me and you are on the same page, girl.
So, you know, like I definitely, you know, feel like I can have these conversations, I can do all these different things, but the entrepreneur part, you know, which, hello, when you're in real estate, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. I struggled, and nobody at my former brokerage said, okay, you are a business owner. So I got this license and I'm like, hey, I'm my own boss. It's great. I can go to lunch when I want. I can do what I want, but you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't know how to work, therein lies the problem, right? And so I came to RE/MAX with what I would say, and not tooting my own horn, but service is something that comes easy to me. Like the relationship piece comes easy. I could serve you well, but I wasn't serving my business well. And so because of that, there was a disconnect between what I wanted to earn. You know, how many families could I serve? I could wake up and be like, oh, okay, I want to serve 30 families this year, which is a lot, right? For a single agent. But without the tips and tricks and tools and systems in place, it's probably going to be impossible to do. And so what they did in my WhyMax session was, tell me how much money you want to make. So of course, you know, everybody has a figure. And then it's like, okay, why? And I'm like, I don't understand the question. Like, because who doesn't want to make oodles of money, right? That's, I had never been, just in complete transparency, I had never been a 6-figure earner in the 6 years that I had held my license. And I came to Remax around Atlanta, and I did my YMAX session, and I went home fired up. They looked at it. They showed me the areas where I was spending money in my business and I was not getting any return for it. And we trimmed the fat there, and we started focusing on other things. And I tapped into using the systems that are available to here, like the ad hoc, what am I looking for? A la carte services that they offer, like contract to close and things of that nature that would help me be more efficient in my business. And I tripled my business in 18 months and became a 6-figure earner. And I put these things down on here that I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to have a farm. So my husband and I, we wanted to be debt free. Like that was the biggest thing. And I wanted to own a farm. I wanted to be a crazy chicken lady. And I was living in the suburbs of Atlanta, and that just wasn't going to happen there. And so we were saving for like a down payment. My son had been in an accident and my vehicle had been totaled. So we were down to being a 1-car family, and I wanted to be able to buy a car. And what that meant to me, because we were going to be debt free, was being able to pay cash for a car. So within 18 months of my meeting for my YMAX session, my husband and I moved up north. We bought a farm. I'm a crazy chicken lady. I was able to purchase a vehicle for cash. I tripled my business. So that all these things that are on here, and I wrote down, like what I've got stapled up, because I never want to forget. You never want to forget like where you came from. And I just put what my goals were. I put on here that I'm a spiritual and I'm a financial thoroughbred, and Dave Ramsey says all the time, like, you can't be a donkey and run with the thoroughbreds, right? So I want to be a thoroughbred. And so these are the things that I tell myself, but it all was a result of the systems and the encouragement and the tutelage that is offered here at Remax around Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to go search for that vision in that paper you're showing us. You look at that every single day.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
probably right there. So if you have done a vision board type thing, Mandy Fulford, our founder, who's incredible, she's a big believer on the vision stuff and manifestation. But you can't just make it and then put it in the closet. Like, you got to look at that sucker every single day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, Chad, did you notice she called the YMAX session and they do an autopsy of your business, which is making an assumption that your business might be dead.
Oh, it was dead.
Right? So
we need to get that.
I got to think on that verbiage, but I don't know. I think I'm into it.
No, that's my next video. I'm doing a video on that right there. I can tell you
autopsy of your business. That
I already know.
You had some zingers already.
Yeah,
big on the words.
You can tell that. I have an immense amount of respect for Megan and Kristen. We always have, and when you meet them, they're fun, but behind the fun curtain is serious care, concern, and business building. Like,
yes,
the way you just described that, Lisa. I hope my son's on here. I'm hoping that some people that are listening to this and listen to it on. Did I just lose you? No, okay, y'all are good. Somebody froze up. What you just described, like the things I just wrote down, and Tracy, you're exactly right. I'm taking a lot of notes. I don't always do that. YMAX is genius. And I love what you said, Lisa. You just say it like it's no big deal, but you serve others, but you weren't serving your business well.
Yeah.
Golly, sit on that for a second. Tracy, I wish Ashley were on here. That's what we're about. Like, and you can't just discover the why and then put it in your notebook. Like you said it took 18 months. That's not 5 minutes.
Right.
That is devotion to a daily process. And I'm sure along the way you were discouraged. I'm sure along the way you're like, am I ever going to get the chickens? Are we ever going to get the house? Are we ever going to get
lots of tears were shed?
But what kept you going? Like, why did you keep going?
Well, first of all, I just had the encouragement here. Like, they saw something in my business and in me, and they didn't give up. And I was determined, like, if for nothing else, sheer spite. I wanted to do real estate. Like, it was something I had always wanted to do. Oh, Tracy. Oh, Tracy.
You got a new bestie.
It was just something that I wanted to do, and I refused to be a statistic. Like, much so, like, I know we haven't gone here, but I had a baby at 16. Like I got pregnant my sophomore year in high school. I had a baby when I was a junior, and I was determined to graduate my senior year, like, and not be a statistic. And so if anything, like I say, it was just kind of like out of spite, but,
can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because you having that baby at 16. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Did that turn you into a fighter, or were you a fighter before that? Like, I wonder if circumstances, were you a fighter before that?
For sure. My mom would definitely tell you I was that kid that was like, like I have a strict policy. I don't negotiate with children. Like I'm not negotiating with you. My mom, man, I tell you what, I gave her a run for her money. I was that kid that was like, why? I questioned everything. I was pretty studious. Like I got straight A's. My very first B I ever got was in 6th grade. We moved to Germany and I started attending a Department of Defense school. And I thought I was pretty smart. Like basically in 2nd grade, the school came to my mom and asked if they could skip me up to 3rd. My mom said no. Then that's my mom.
I thought it might be. That's why I put it up there. I didn't know for sure, but I thought it might be. Hey,
that's
Mom,
my mom. And so in 3rd grade, they came to my mom and wanted to skip me up to 4th grade. My mom said no. And so I would go over to like the 3rd grade classroom for reading and math, and same thing in 3rd grade. I went to the 4th grade classroom, all the things. So I thought I was smart. And then we moved to Germany and I started attending a Department of Defense school, a DOD school. And those kids were smart. And I got my first B and I remember coming home devastated. So, no, I've always been like, before I had Ashley, I wanted to be a prosecuting attorney. Like that is who I wanted to be. I'd get in my mom's closet and put suits on and wear her heels and go downstairs in the basement and had an old briefcase. And I would, put the teddy bears on trial, like that's just who I was. Huh?
You can't handle the truth.
That's right. And that's exactly who I was. So I was on the debate team in high school. Like that's just who I was.
Yeah. So Vince, the reason I asked that, this is part of what I tell you when I created these questions that I ask when I'm interviewing like anybody, but primarily when I was doing recruiting. And one of them was, tell me the most difficult thing you've ever been through. And when you ask somebody that you first met, they look at you like, are you crazy? Like you haven't earned the right to hear that yet. But if Lisa had the courage to say to me, I had a baby when I was 16, and I asked her, okay, did that make you a fighter or were you already a fighter? When she says, no, I was, and she just told that story about going to her basement with the heels on in her suit, hire her now and forever. Right. So you can tell that's the kind of thing when you're looking for those 6 things that make up what we believe makes up what an agent. She's got resilience. She screams it, right? Mm-hmm. She just talked about, she went to a school as a 6th grader and looked around and said, everybody else is smarter than me. Most 6th graders quit when that happens. She said, I'm going to get better. So is she learning based? Absolutely. Mastery based? Absolutely. So that's why stories matter, Lisa. And I appreciate you sharing that. And good job, Miss Tricia. and Dad, get some credit for that. I'm glad that you're on here, Miss Tricia. If you want to throw any popcorn questions on there, you can ask anything, and I'll make her answer it. Right?
I'm going to change the ticker on the bottom. We're pretty protective over our Abundant Life hashtag, but Lisa, you're on it, and we're going to roll the Abundant Life ticker because you are what kind of defines what we believe about living the version of life that you want to live. And Tad, we got to the conclusion to hire someone like you, Lisa, without asking anything about sales or transactions or any of that, right? So when you say I wasn't selling the candy bars and flipping them, that's more my speed. That's stuff I still like to do. But you actually have an advantage because I have to tone down the greasy car salesman thing and focus on the relationship, whereas you go in strictly, how can I serve?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've had to train myself to get to that point. So believe it or not, you have the advantage. And that comes from lots of reasons and places in your life and experiences, right? So don't discredit yourself. I think that's a very strong way to think. And it's the best entrepreneurs are relation based. That's no matter how you cut it, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tracy, throw your email up for for Lisa, so she can reach out
Yes.
to you or vice versa. It'll be in the notes. But I know you guys. This might be the reason we did the show. So now Tracy has a friend in Atlanta. Lisa has a friend here, and I mean, I totally believe in that kind of thing. 100%.
Absolutely.
The other thing she said, Vince, I can't even take notes fast enough, was she said, I love this. I want to serve 30 families.
Mm-hmm.
It was not loud and clear. It was not 30 transactions.
Mm-hmm.
I need 30 deals or 30 whatever. It was, I want to serve 30 families. And she said, I serve people well and not my business well, which it was the fall after that. But I love that perspective, relationships. And Lisa, you told me your superpower is people, is knowing how. Tell me in your daily business how that manifests itself. Like, are you at home right now? Do you primarily stay at home? Are you in the offices a lot? Tell me your daily thing.
So because we have 4 offices, I rotate wherever an agent is in need. So like, let's say, for instance, I do agent one-on-ones. So if they want some coaching, they just need, like, I met with an agent via Zoom on Friday because this agent has taken a job. And so she needed like a lunch hour session. And so I told her, she was like, this is exactly what I need. And I was like, yeah, this is just the half court. She's feeling a little defeated. And so this was the not half court, the halftime. Get in the locker room. I'll pump you up, pat your butt, send you back out there. And let me write this down. So Tracy at remaxrocks.com. And so that's what I do. So I travel across the 4 offices, but typically the office that I'm in today, I'm in our Kennesaw office. We call it West Cobb. And I'm here on Mondays and Thursdays. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, if I'm not in office, then yes, I do work from home. But I go, if the office needs coverage, I'm providing coverage. We just want to make sure that there's always like a broker presence and that agents are accustomed to seeing us. That way they have the opportunity to, just come say, hey. My cup gets filled by being in office anyways.
And tell me about the conversations that you're having primarily. Like today, Lisa, what's on your schedule? What do you try to pay attention to? I'm just curious how I can learn from you. I'm 100% convinced of that now. But how do you position your time in the office?
Well, so I do have ADD, full disclosure. So it's trying to stay on task is really the biggest thing, because it's very easy for me to get sidetracked and have what I believe to be a fruitful and productive conversation with agents, but that I end up, they can probably go a little longer than they need to. So, but typically, like tomorrow is our final accountability session. So like today, I'll be sending out all of those agents who are in this semester's accountability, sending them just a text message saying, hey, tomorrow's our final session. In this particular session, I've given everybody kind of like a topic per session of kind of like, if you've ever seen in the grocery store where you take a penny, leave a penny kind of thing. And so I came up with, 6 different topics for little nuggets of wisdom. So you leave a little nugget and then I'll get a nugget from everybody else and then kind of send out a recap email just saying, hey, it was great meeting with you guys. So really just kind of prepping for that meeting tomorrow, just kind of going through, sending out recruiting, contacts. And that's basically how I spend my day. So part of it's recruiting, part of it is agent like retention, and some of it is the one-on-one sessions that I have with agents as well in office.
And do you sit like it's at your desk where you're sitting now?
Yeah, this is the broker office.
So in an 8-hour day, how long are you going to be sitting right there? They come in and find you, or do you go walk around? I'm just trying to figure out what's most productive in an office for you.
Well, so I'll just tell you, we don't have a whole lot of agents. We have agent staples. So at each of our 4 offices, on any given day, there's certain agents that are just going to be there because that's their routine. But that number has drastically dwindled since COVID, right? But yeah, we have an admin here and we've got some other agents that come in. So I'm not one of those people that comes in and goes into the office and hides. Like I'm walking around, I'm getting my coffee. We're chit-chatting about what's going on. Like I am all things. People ask me about my chickens. I love sourdough bread. So I'm always baking and bringing goodies to the office. And, until very recently, all my bees died. I was a beekeeper and they produced honey. So I brought in some honey for everybody to taste. And, so it's just I walk around. They come here.
Bees. What happened to your bees?
Well, they were a young hive. And I don't think they were well established. I think that was, what it is. I'm thinking that plus the cold, and me, just quite frankly, brand new. I was an amateur beekeeper. So I got my bees through a program, through every one of my closings. I give $500 donation to an organization called Doc's Healing Hives. And it's a gentleman, Tim Doherty. He runs it. He helps veterans. He's a veteran himself, and he helps veterans heal from PTSD and TBI through beekeeping. And so the $500 is enough for a veteran to get a nook of bees, which is, like a package of bees and their hive. And so it's kind of like a starter kit. And so I've worked with him for years and just donate out of my closings, but he got affiliated with UGA, the University of Georgia, and their extension office. And so he is doing farm school, and farm school, there's a segment, like if you want to run cattle, they've got somebody, but he does the bee segment. And so if you are a veteran, you can come through bee school for free. It's your scholarship, but he also allows the spouses of veterans. So I was the very first spouse to go through bee school. And so I got my bees from him, and I got them the very end of June last year. And, I did all that I could to keep them alive, but they died. So I don't know.
What is the name of that organization? Vince, see if you can type this in the comments, because I know somebody. That's pretty cool.
So it's docshealinghives.org. I've got a
DOCS.
Yes, DOCS. So he was in the medic division, and served overseas and was wounded and came back and went through the Shepherd Center. So his program is also approved through the Shepherd Center here in Atlanta as well.
That's cool.
So it's DOCS, Docs Healing Hives, I believe, .org.
We can find it from there. I bet somebody
right here. I have it, and I'm going to post the link. And the site looks awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
That's pretty cool. We have. Excuse me. I wasn't sure if it was the same as here. Like where I live, there are people that have they're beekeepers, and there's signs out by the road that say "Don't spray here." They do mosquito spraying here. And I just didn't know if maybe somebody didn't turn their truck off and went by your house and killed your bees. But you sound like you might live out in the country, so you don't have that thing anymore.
I do live pretty much in the boonies. I'm surrounded by 46 acres of, cow pasture behind me, 40 acres to the right. I do have neighbors to the left, but I am that guy that's like, do not, there's no spraying going on over here.
Yeah.
So are you gonna get another hive?
Yes. So
I knew the answer to that already. You're not going to die and then quit.
Well, bees were kind of one of those things. Like I never naturally, I wanted to be that crazy chicken lady. My husband and I were in an apartment for, years before we moved and bought our farm. And I mean, I wanted the chickens, but the bees just kind of came, Tim was like, hey, do you want to come to bee school and get bees? And I'm kind of like, okay. Like I felt like supporting his business or his 501(c) was great, but I didn't necessarily want to be a beekeeper. But when I got the bees, they're pretty low maintenance. And I will tell you what really changed my mind was processing the honey. And everybody loves honey. So now that I have honey, and I'm just completely in awe. Like the Lord, the way he orchestrates and works everything, and how bees can go in there and do their business, and then we reap the fruit of their labor. Like it's incredible to me. So now I'm like, I need 5 hives. I had 1, I need 5 because I want all the honey.
We go from suburb apartment in Atlanta to fresh eggs, bread, and honey.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about sitting down and defining what you want and going after it.
Yes,
I want to live in the land of milk and honey.
So tell me, I want to get your opinion, Lisa, and what your leadership thinks, because I've been arguing with myself for 5 years about this limiting belief of whether or not I just accept that people don't want to come to the office anymore because of COVID and they got comfortable. Mm-hmm. Is that a limiting belief, or can we get them back? Do we just need to accept that it's going to be remote from now forward? Because I love the interaction so much. Mm-hmm. I miss the daily. We still have a couple of offices that do get a lot of people, and the more people talk about, not many people come to the office, I wonder if it gets in their head and then they don't come anymore. So what do you think? What are y'all talking about? Are y'all downsizing space? Are you repurposing it? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you that that's above my pay grade. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not privy to those conversations, which is fine. I like to be down with the agents, not making any sort of big decisions. I don't have that authority, but I will tell you, I don't think it's a limiting belief, but I do also think too that, sometimes you have to be able to read the writing on the wall. Like you have to be able to read the sign of the times. And like I said, we have staple agents that absolutely, I don't want to say they depend on the office, but they have set up camp here. Like this is base camp. They come in, they're writing off, like they're doing all the things here. And I love that we can provide that space, right? You have a closing, you can bring your commission check here. You can like all the things, right? But I also think too, as a business owner, you have to really kind of stop and think like, is it fruitful? Could kind of how we have an autopsy through the YMAX session of our individual businesses, the business as a whole, I do think, and this is not saying for RE/MAX around Atlanta, I just mean business owners in general. You have to stop and think, if I'm spending, 30%, 40% of our budget on buildings, right? And utilities and all the things, what is the rate of return? How many agents are either paying for or utilizing individual offices, coming into the office? And it doesn't matter what you do in life. Like I could throw a party today and serve shrimp and burgers, and there's still going to be somebody that said, well, I want chicken, right? So there's always going to be that person that if you close down the offices and maybe just kind of, because we have 4, and I don't know how it is. You're in South Carolina, and I think North Carolina too. Atlanta, like if you're not in the suburb of Atlanta, like it takes me 52 minutes to get here, and it is a straight shot down the highway. It's spread out. So there's no way that if I have an agent that lives over here, 40 minutes from their office that they're based out of, and we close down that office and move everything to this one over here, well, they're going to feel like they're not well served because they shut down the office, right? I don't think there's any good answer. I just think that at the end of the day, from a business perspective, you do really have to kind of say, am I serving my agents well by spending the budget on something that they're telling me they don't want, right? A service that they not even necessarily don't want, but maybe a service that they don't need, because we've maybe moved away from that, right? So yeah. I feel like I'm being very vague, but I don't know the right answer. And the reason why I don't is because I don't make those hard decisions. I don't look at the budget. I don't necessarily manage the office, right? So it's hard for me to give you a good answer.
I'd like to look at the correlation between production and attendance in the office, right? So Lisa, do you feel like those staple agents produce more?
I mean, off the top of my head, there's one in particular that I'm like, yeah, he's a top producer.
Without naming names, obviously, we've got some productive agents and teams and things, and they're in consistently.
Yes.
But then again, Tad, the tricky thing with how we believe in abundant life is like,
right,
how much you produce is kind of irrelevant if you're producing enough to live the life you want. So Absolutely. Maybe I can work from home as a sales professional and say my number is $100,000 and 4 million or 5 million in production. And I can do that without ever going in, but I'll stop in for fun things and potlucks and all that. And I still feel supported and needed. Is that a bad thing? This is that debate we have,
I struggle like Tad does, because I think like the things that we do, our broker team, when they put together meetings, they think about it. They're really putting a lot of heart and thought into it. And I really just think as agents, because I've been on both sides, I wear both hats, right? So I can see it from the agent side, but also see it from the broker side. And it's like, sometimes in real estate, it feels like one more thing you have to do, right? I've got to go swing by. I've got to go. But the hope is you've created a place where people want to, like they'll go out of their way to come to a potluck or come to our award ceremony or come to whatever it's going to be, because they want to see those people. And that's the beauty of having, more than one office. I think that that's the challenge in having more than one office, because if you had just one, then that heartbeat is a little tighter, I do think, because that's just the one place that people come to. But we have 4 offices across Metro Atlanta. And so trying to do something, we do like between 4 and 6 functions a year, and we invite everybody to come. So that way you're putting faces with names. All the agents get to see each other. They get to, do that type of thing. But as far as like doing a monthly meeting or anything like that, it would be traveling to 4 different offices, kind of giving the 4 different information. So we do Zoom. And when we do the Zooms, we have a really good attendance. And I would say there's certain things that we do throughout the year that get really good attendance, and sometimes other things people don't. But also too, like, you have to stop and think, if it's the summertime and agents are in a season where they still have children at home, they're probably on summer vacation. So it's going to be harder to get them to come in. Right. Yeah. I don't know that there's any right answer, but I love seeing the people. I love being in office.
Yeah. I think the answer is there's not an answer.
Yeah.
I think it's every single person is different. So you can't make some people thrive in it. Like, I'm surprised how many agents are introverts as I study more. Like, they don't really love people, so they don't want to come by the office. It's annoying to them. The couple things that make me ask that question now is, like, my son is 23. You pay attention next time you go into a Starbucks or any coffee shop or any Panera Bread. You only ever see 40 years old and over sitting by themselves. My son is 23. When he goes, he's going with somebody, or he's meeting a group of kids there. The younger generation seems more communal than the older generation does. And I don't want us to miss that by not having office space. The other thing is, like, this morning I wake up and there's news that Rocket Mortgage bought the largest mortgage servicer in the world after they bought Redfin. Now, if people aren't in the office to hear about that, are they informed? Are they missing that CCP is a big discussion? Clear Cooperation is a big discussion, and NAR just made a new listing status that's in our MLS already this week. So I think there's a lot of things, but the problem is most offices meetings aren't valuable as RE/MAX around Atlanta's. Most of them are overdone, they're too many. They don't have a good content. And the agents, you get one chance, and if you don't wow them, they're not coming back. So I like the Zoom option. We do all the things. I was just curious. I don't love going away. I want there to be commercial space. I want there to be that kind of thing. Although I'm not in the office that much, I just think it's a good thing, good place for learning and community. So, and you're the extrovert's extrovert. So I hate for you one day to be living. Interesting that the extroverted extrovert moved to a farm. I love that.
Well, so my husband works from home, and he's like the introverted introvert. Like, he literally is like the hermit. He can go 2 weeks without leaving the house, like, literally. And just not, I'm out and about every single day.
Every day,
because I'm usually in office, or I have small group at church, or I've got something that's going on. And so I'm always out. Like, I am that lady that is standing behind you in the Aldi grocery line, and I'm like scanning your cart, and I'm like, what are we having for dinner tonight? Because that looks pretty good. Like, that's a great combination you got in there. And, that's how people are like, oh, matter of fact, what I made for dinner last night. Case in point, the lady that was standing in line in front of me at Aldi was making like a Mississippi pot roast, but rather than using beef, she used chicken. And I said, I'm going to try that. And I did. And it was delicious.
And so Vince will be doing that tonight. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Let's finish up with this. Vince, if you have a couple more questions, that's fine. I wanted to ask you, you've made reference to a couple times your faith. Would you mind talking to us a little bit about how that impacts your daily life, and what is the most important thing? I'm not asking you to share your faith and ask for an altar call, of course.
Yeah, I can give one.
I know you can. That's why I wanted to make sure you didn't think you had to. How does it affect you day to day, and how does it bring you encouragement or strength or whatever it does for you?
I mean, well, I'll tell you, like, I did not even come to know the Lord, really. Like, I knew of the Lord, but I didn't like grow up in a Christian household. Like, we didn't go to church regularly. It was more like Easter and Christmas and stuff like that. But I am happy to say, like, my mom and like everybody, they've come to know the Lord like since then. But I was 29. And so you figure I had a baby at 16, and then I had my son when I was 24. So they're 8 years apart. And I lived a really hard, they say hard knocks life. Like, I was a single mom. I worked 2 jobs. I worked 7 days a week. I was tired. I was broke. People say all the time, like, oh, I'd give anything to be, 29 again, or 25. You can't pay me to be 20 anything again. Like my 20s were a disaster. But when I had that, conversion, when I had that, coming to the Lord at age 29, it just radically changed everything. It really did. It literally, when people say, well, what changed? You go to these seminars and, I was watching your Max chat and you were saying, well, I'm not trying to sell you anything. This isn't, it's kind of like that. It wasn't a situation where I can say that there was one book that I read, or it literally was giving my heart to the Lord and quit being like Jonah and running in the opposite direction. Right. And, I had a very, very, very big scarcity mindset. It was one of those people like, what's in it for me? I bullied my way, so when I would go downstairs and practice being a prosecuting attorney, like I could bump you up against the wall and make you feel like you had been beat up and all I did was verbally assault you. Like that, words were my weapon, right? And at the age 29, it all changed. And you realized, you start to realize like it's not about you. And I really think the biggest change in my business, like not only coming to Remax around Atlanta, it was awesome because of what they offer here, but really the biggest change was I finally was released from the little brokerage that I left when I threw my hands up, and I very clearly heard the Lord say, because I asked him every day, when is my name going to be on the board? When am I going to be able to make $1 Million Club? When am I, like that's what it was for me. And I felt like if I wasn't top producer, you hear these agents, oh, she's crushing it in real estate. And I just felt like that was never my story. And I'm like, Lord, I know you called me to real estate. Like I know I'm supposed to be here, but why doesn't my business reflect what I know I'm supposed to be doing? And I had a scarcity mindset, and I very clearly heard him say, when you'll be about my business, I'll be about yours. And that's when the shift came, when I started thinking, okay, I don't want to do 20 transactions because, we do business planning sessions at the end of every year. And what do? They tell you this is how many transactions you need to have. This is the minimum price point. This is, you know what I'm saying? Like your volume needs to be this in order to equate earning this. And I, I at that point started realizing, okay, I want to serve 20 families. And so when I would pick up my phone and answer it, it wasn't a chore. Every time I had a conversation and someone didn't choose me, it was an opportunity to perfect my craft. That's what I, began to learn, that's where the abundance mindset came in, is that I'm going to be about his business. Basically seek ye first, his kingdom, and everything else will be added to it. And then I think I shared in a previous podcast that you were doing with someone that, I'm a 10 talent servant. So the talent of the parable of the talents. And so the master goes away and he gives 5 talents to one, 2 talents to another, and 1 talent to another. And when he comes back, he said, what did you do with what I gave you? And the one who had 5 talents had gone out and got 5 more, right? So he doubled it. And then he was told the one who had the 1 talent, who didn't do anything with it, to give it to the one who already had. And that like really stuck with me. And so it's like, okay, you've already given me the resources. You've already given me what I'm supposed to have. I need to take what you've given and steward it. So that's where this whole, I never had the desire to be on a farm. I never had the desire to do all these things, but stewardship really came into play. And that is now how I view, my life. It just, I don't know how to I don't know how to separate the two. Like I struggled in the beginning because I wanted to separate. I didn't want people to think I was being too preachy. And, at the end of the day, I'm just going to be who I am and who he created me to be, because I know that at the epicenter of what I'm doing, it's all from him, right? It's all his. And I'm a manager. I'm managing what he gave me. And so that's where the abundant life came for me.
That's awesome. Vince, you were taking some notes. What do you want to say?
When you'll be about my business, I'll be about yours. I mean, come on. Come on now. That's the first time I had to write a quote and then reference it to God, like as I'm writing. I was thinking comparison is a thief, Tad. I think you were too, a little bit there. Stewardship, that word. We've got to integrate. You saying that you don't consciously choose to steward anymore. It's who you are. You cannot separate the two.
Right.
When you get to a point in your life, in your business, where your transactions and your stewardship are inseparable, it's genuine, it's real, it's natural, and it's the right way to do business. It just is the right way to do business.
Yeah.
I bet you repeat referrals. I bet your clients call you after for years.
So I do have a funny story. I am serving now the very first client I ever served. So I helped them buy a house 12 years ago. They bought a $500,000 home. And she called me. She's referred people to me over the years, but I was terrified that they were going to know that they were my first clients, that I had floundered, that I didn't know what I was doing. And they were actually like a duty call. I was working like the duty desk and came in. And so she called me and she said, "Hey, Lisa, that house you sold us, that 6-bedroom, 5-bath house, our kids are grown. It's just me and the husband. We don't need it anymore. And so we want to put it on the market." So I've just helped them purchase a condo. And we're going to be putting their home on the market for a little over $1 million in May. And so I told her, when I went to go do the listing appointment, I said, "Okay, I have a confession. You were my very first clients ever." And they were absolutely shocked. I was shocked that they were shocked. And I was grateful because maybe I didn't do as bad as I thought I did. But I told them that you were my very first clients ever. So I just think, how awesome is that they've come back?
Yeah.
Tad, give us your reflection on the last hour and 1 minute.
Yeah. So I want to go when I send this to the editor, I'm going to put it through an AI program that's going to scrub the words and see how many times we said the word serve on this episode, because I guarantee it was probably in the 30s. Just a guess. And it's interesting, Lisa, I want to close with this, and no disrespect to Trisha or your dad or Vince or your husband, but I would venture to say that out of the 5 of those people, you could say with confidence that you're in the service also. You know, isn't it interesting that you've been talking your whole life about how you were raised in the service and you were you married into the service and you know people in the service, but honey, if you're not in the service, I don't know anybody that is. I mean, you radiate. I understand why we had you on the show. Vince, how many times have I said this? This show's for me. Like I learn so much every time I get a chance to meet new people like you. I don't ask you questions ahead of time because I want it to kind of unfold as we do it. And it unfolded for me today. Like, I'll be about your business when you get about mine. You don't know this, but the last, 8 weeks in our church, we've been talking about stewardship. And not once has he mentioned money.
Right.
Which is revolutionary for me. I've been in churches my whole life that all they talk about is money. Yeah. I mean, you just brought everything full circle for me, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here. I don't know if it helped anybody else. I don't know if it helped anybody else, but I'm right in the middle of being helped. So, Vince, anything else before we wrap it up?
No, gosh, no. I just can't wait to rewatch and write down more. This was awesome. I'm going to watch with my wife, and I hope everyone, we're going to share this on our post, and I hope everyone just listens. I don't care what career you do. This was relevant and helpful, and you served today. So,
oh, well, thank you.
That's
what a pleasure for me to be on. Thank you for having me.
How can they find you if they want to, Lisa?
So my Instagram is not really real estate related. It's this is home_stead. So homestead. And then I'm Lisa at lisa.thompson@remax.net.
Okay. Tracy, grab that. I gave her your, email earlier. And I want to say this to you, because I'm just going to wrap up with this. I don't know why I'm prompted to say this, but Vince put those out there for us too.
Thank you.
So when my mom and dad were still alive, every time I had a birthday, not every time, but a lot of times I had a birthday, I would call them and thank them. And I even sent my mom and dad birthday cards for when it was my birthday, because I thought,
wow,
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything on that day, and I get all the recognition for it, right? Mom and dad did it all.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to Trisha, who's on the show today, thank you for having this young lady. I know that along the way, I can tell from the story. I'm sure there have been bumps in the road, and there might be a bump in the road right this second. I don't know what y'all's relationship's like. I don't know what your dad's relationship's like with you, but God bless them for having this bright light in the world. So we'll wrap it up with that. Lisa, thank you for being here today. You're an amazing human being. Vince, thanks for always, forging forward with us. And I'll get you the recording when it's ready for publication next week. I'll send it to you next Sunday, Lisa, so you can use it however you want to.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Rise Up Nation. Good to have you. And we will see you next week with more fun and excitement.
Bye.